Morning, brothers and sisters. Back to finish up from the last videos on dust and ashes, and to go over a few mistakes that I made, or maybe not mistakes, but things that I forgot to throw in. When we were talking about Isaiah 29, we hit a passage in Isaiah 29. It says in verse 7, it says, "And the multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel, even all that fight against her and her munition, and that distress her shall be as a dream of a night vision." All right, now we can link that to a passage in Job 20. All right, and we use Job 20 for Christ pierced, that video that says Christ pierced the poison and the gall, or what did I call it? I can't even remember what I called it. But it says this in Job 20 verse, I forgot my verse now. Sorry, folks. Where is it? Ah, I went by it. Sorry about that. Job 20 verse 8. It says, "He shall fly away as a dream and shall not be found, yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night." Who's going to be chased away? Well, those wicked men who put themselves in charge of the body. Now, in our last video, we were talking about ashes and Israel, and how she represents the ashes and the Israel, ashes and the heifer, right, being burned to ashes. She was a sacrifice, Israel was. And it says in Job 30, if you want to read all of Job 30, it tells you that this is exactly what took place. It correlates to so many of the passages that we've just went over. But the first bunch of verses here in Job 30 that we're going to look at has to do with the wicked men that she says were not fit to set with the dogs of her sheep. She says they were wicked men. There was no value in these men. For want and famine, they were solitary. They were gaunt. They gnawed the ground by night in waste and desolation. They plucked up mallow by the bushes, and whose food is the root of the broom shrub. I'm reading various translations here. It says they were expelled from human society. People shouted at them as if they were thieves. They're living on the slopes of in the cliffs of the valleys and caves of the earth and in the rocks. These are not good men. It says among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. Let me see what else we got. It says foolish men without even a name. They were forced to leave the land. They were children of fools, is what it says in the King James. Yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. Verse 9, "And now am I, me." Now this is the righteous spirit speaking, who was rejected, represented by Eve, who then becomes known as Israel. All right? This is who becomes the byword. Israel, Ariel, daughter Zion, mother Jerusalem. These all becomes the byword. All right? They become accursed. And it says, "And now am I their song, yea, I am their byword." Where do we find Israel as a byword? Let me see here. I know I wrote it down. It's just an issue. Can I find it? Okay. Let's see here. I wrote it down just so you can go in and look at the reference yourself. If I can't find it here. You go in and you look up that word byword in Job 30, chapter 9. And it'll lead you to references where Israel is actually the byword, has become the byword. Right there. It is found in, well, there's more than one. But we'll look at 2 Chronicles 7:19. "But if you turn away and forsake the statutes and the commandments I have set before you, and if you go off to serve and worship other gods," verse 20, "then I will uproot Israel from the soil I have given them, and this temple that I have sanctified for my name I will banish from my presence, and I will make you a byword and a ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now exalted, all who pass by it will be appalled and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? Now this was the Lord's response to Solomon. If Solomon turned away from following her words, her commandments, and that's precisely what Solomon did. Solomon took harlot wives from the surrounding Adamic nations. He continued on this path of rejecting the righteous spirit, and then he was the one who daubed up the gates, the breaches, and the wall of David, which we come to identify as the key of David, and his key becomes the key of Solomon because he chose the harlot spirit to rule the body, which then puts himself in charge and makes him a great king. That's why you have Moloch and Marduk and Baal and all these names come into existence as gods. All right, they made themselves the image of God. That's what men did, and we did the study on Key of David that proved that that's precisely what Solomon did, and God warned him, Israel will become a byword. And it's God's threat saying, I'll take the authority of God from you. You will no longer be the blessed nation. I'll remove her from you. And that's what we see God doing. God takes her and casts her into the fields of the Gentiles. And now, in Job, if we continue on in Job 30, all right, these base men, she says, she says, but now am I their song. These wicked men that were so debased, now have I become their byword. They abhor me, they flee far from me, and spare not to spit in my face. Because my cord has been loosed, I am afflicted. They have also let loose the bridle before me. Upon my right hand rise the youth. These are the children being raised in false paths, to push her away, to treat her as if she's less, to debase her. They're being taught it. Upon my right hand rise the youth. They push away my feet, and they raise up against me the ways of their destruction. They mar my path. They set forward my calamity. They have no helper. So they no longer have her as their helper. They have shoved her off as the spirit, as the comforter, as the restrainer. They no longer want her. They make a covenant with the harlot. They came upon me as a wide breaking in of waters. In the desolation, they rolled themselves upon me. So here we see that gaping breach, right? They advance as through a gaping breach. They keep rolling in through the ruins. Well, what did God warn the men and women of Israel not to do, of Judah? Not to take wives and husbands from the surrounding nations, because in the day that they did that, she said, they will turn you away from following me. And that's just precisely what they did. So here the men were told in many passages were responsible for bringing in the harlots. And they took many, many wives, all of whom they wanted to take, they took as wives. And that's what she's saying here. This is what the righteous spirit is saying here. This is what the righteous daughters of Zion are saying here. It says the advance is through a gaping breach. Now that's your allegory again to what Adam did in Job 31:33. All right, he daubs his wall up. Again, we talked about this in the Key of David, so I can't go over it again. But verse 15, it says, terrors are turned upon me. They pursue my soul as the wind, and my welfare passes away as the cloud. They don't care about the righteous daughters anymore. They've cast them off. They want the harlot because she says, hey, boys, you can rule yourself. And they begin to create laws that perpetuate violence against the righteous daughters. We're told this in Malachi 2. And what did God say? If you want to go read Malachi 2:15, Malachi 2, all of Malachi 2 actually, tells you what they did to their sister. They got brother, but if you read further on, that's a telling lie. I don't know how you can't see the lie in that passage where it's clearly their sisters that they made the laws against. And did not she make one, yet had he, Adam, the residue of her spirit, that would be Eve's, though her name wasn't Eve, her name was Adam in the beginning. Her spirit. And why one? Why did mother make one? That she might seek a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, to your wife, she warns them, and let none deal treacherously or unfaithfully against the wife of his youth, which is what Adam did. And he chose a covenant with the harlot spirit. And this all plays out in the scriptures over and over again as the men rejecting the righteous spirit and taking on the harlot spirit, which then says, make your own laws, and those laws subjugates the righteous daughters under violence, which is what they were doing in Malachi 2. The priests were writing laws that had violence in their skirts, and they were saying, well, God says this is okay to do to women. And then men today kind of, it gets set in your brain. It's a form of brainwashing is what it is. Now my soul is poured out upon me. The days of affliction have taken hold upon me. Law has come into effect. It has begun to weaken her. All have turned against her, against the righteous daughters. My bones are pierced in me in the night season, and my sinews take no rest. By the great force, there's a word that I'd like to chase down in another video. I've already done it, but I can't do it in this one. I just ain't got the time. But if you get looking at that word, great force, it's actually going to link us, and if I hit it, I will go into more detail, to a word in Psalm 69 that then's going to reference us to the word force, but not this number. And it's a feminine force. It says, by the great force of my disease, my spirit, she's saying, by the great spirit of the sin is my garment changed. My body is changed. It bindeth me about as a collar of my coat. I believe she's talking about law that subjugates women, that then continues to weaken our force, weakens our body. It puts us in subjugation under the man. It's almost ritualistic power is what you're looking at here. They're drawing power in a ritualistic way, which is a spiritual way that they're doing it, but it's very ritualistic. And so this is a reference to her being banned by the law and being weakened. He has cast me into the mire, and I am become like dust and ashes. There you go. So you know you're talking about Israel, what Adam did with the harlot spirit. It caused her to be cast into the mire, and I am become like dust and ashes. I cry unto thee, and you don't hear me. I stand up, and you don't pay no attention to me. That's what men do to most women. They cast us off. We're not that intelligent. We're not that worthy. We're weaker than they are, and the law has built them up so that they really have fallen into their own snares. But you see here, this is a reference to Israel as a sacrifice. He has cast me into the mire. Who did? Well, her brother did. Her brother Adam cast her down. He no longer wanted her that was given in covenant, which represented the righteous spirit. And then her seed came to represent Israel as the blessed seed, because she did not violate her covenant. As they lie about her day in and day out, she bears the sin of it all. She's to blame. I cry unto thee, and thou dost not hear me. You have become cruel to me with your stronger hands, with your strong hands. You opposest thyself against me. This is the man against the woman. Thou liftest me up to the wind, that causes me to ride upon it, and you dissolvest my substance. You take away all of my worth, all of my value under your man-made laws. That's what you do to the righteous daughters. You have taken away my worth, my self-worth under your man-made laws. You have weakened me. You have been cruel to me. You subjugate me. You want nothing to do with my words of truth anymore. All right? This is what this is saying. For I know that thou wilt bring me to death, and to the house appointed for all living. All right? We're going to go down here a little bit further because I want to get to some other passages. She says this. She says, my skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. My heart, my singing, is also turned to mourning, and my organ into the voice of them that weep. So her singing, her soul, her feelings have all become deeply saddened, deeply despaired. But she's black here. She says, my skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. Who else was black? All right? Just remember that. We're going to get to it. Now, let's go to Psalm 69. We're going to carry on a little bit here in this study. We're not so much going to look at ashes anymore. because those were the references to the ashes. But I thought, since I got time, and I really have someplace I need to be in a little bit of time, but since I'm doing this, I thought I might as well add a few more details in about other things. So we were looking at Psalm 68. Now we're going to go to Psalm 69. It says, to the chief musician upon Shoshanim, a psalm of David. Now, watch what other passages says. This is for the choir director according to the lilies. Now, if anybody has watched through all of my videos, and yeah, it can be tedious, I know that, you know that we've come to understand that the daughter Zion's covenant was called the covenant of the lilies. And you identify that covenant with the Shulamite in Song of Songs, because she is called the lily there. It's not him being called it, it's her being called the lily. She's the lily of the valley. And these daughters are the lilies of the covenant. And you will find through David's psalm, I think, 4 references to the covenant of the lilies. It might even be 5. And it's all to do with these daughters of Zion, who represent the righteous spirit that these wicked men cast off, for a covenant with the harlot that then creates the bondage of law, which yokes us under the law. All right? All right. So here we have, according to the lilies. All right? I sink in deep mire. There she is, sinking in deep mire. What did we get in Job 30? Where there is no standing, I am coming to deep waters where the floods overflow me. So she's made a sacrifice. Israel is being made a sacrifice for the sin of the harlot. All right? I am weary of my crying. My throat is dried. Mine eyes fail while I wait for my God. So this is the spirit. This is the daughter that spirit inhabited fully. All right? So she is a member of the congregation of the Lord that's speaking here. We come to recognize that these daughters of Zion are called the congregation of the Lord. And I believe this is probably the daughter of Zion that is speaking here. In the, as an overview, as an overtone. Verse 4, watch this. They that hate me without cause are more than the hairs of mine head, and they that would destroy me, being mine enemies wrongfully. She did nothing wrong. All right? They turned on her anyway. They just simply hated her. They that would destroy me, being my enemies wrongfully, are mighty. And then I restored that which I took not away. I want to show you what she says here. All right. Now let's scroll down here. We're going to skip the next verse and the next one because I want to hit on this one. Verse 7. Verse 8, sorry. It says, I am become a stranger unto my brethren, and an alien or foreigner unto my mother's children. That could be her sisters, those that turned on her. That could be that. But I am become a stranger unto my brethren, unto my brothers who turned on me, and a foreigner to my mother's children, or to the other daughters who turned. She's become a stranger to them. Because there is that idea that seems to be weaved in through the scriptures, and that there was a division, all right, possibly between the daughters of Zion, and one come in to take the other out. That could be it. I sense that at times, and then at other times I don't. So I'm still studying it, still in review for me. But here she says, I am become a stranger. Now, watch what it says in Obadiah 1. All right? Keep holding on to her skin is black in Job 30. Okay? But watch what this says. We're going to read all of Obadiah 1. It says, the vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord God, that's 136, concerning Adam. That means Adam. Concerning Adam. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador, that's the daughter Zion, I believe, and the daughters of Zion, is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle? We're talking about Edom here, Adam. So, if they're saying her, it's the daughter of Zion that's your messengers, your ambassadors that's sent. they're a divine selection that we're told about in Romans 11. Israel does obtain. If you run out, obtain, the derivative, I think down to not the next word, but the next word, it means birth. So she manages to obtain, to birth truth, that which she has searched for is truth that she has searched for, so she could birth her children. Keep that in mind. Now she's sent, arise ye and let's rise up against her in battle, against the harlot, but against fallen Adam, who chose that harlot. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. And she is, when these daughters of Zion come on scene and the world began to recognize them as who they are, the Israel, the seed from the promise, which is now counted as the seed, which is Israel, which were these daughters, I believe, that were originally cast out into the fields of the Gentiles. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the cliffs of the rock. Who exalted themselves? Babylon. All right, daughter Babylon did that, the harlot. But who exalted her? Fallen Adam did, because she made him a king in the earth and a god in the earth, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? I'm God. Who's going to bring me down now? And it says our counsel has been in the dark. Who seeth us? Nobody sees us. Who's going to bring us down? Nobody saw all the lies we told. They don't get it. They're never going to get it. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. Now we're talking about the harlot spirit. If these came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not have some grapes? So she's saying, you pick it clean. You don't even stop when you have enough. You keep taking and taking and taking, and you never have enough. Verse 6, how are the things of Esau? Now we're going to Esau? Well, Esau is red, Edom, Adam. We're looking at Adam. This is a reference to Adam, the fallen sons of Adam. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? So they hid, right? They hid and they wrote their lie, putting men, Baal, your husband, as your Lord, your master, your Godhead, he, over the righteous daughters. That's what they did. And they perpetuated violence against her to do it, in order to bring it about. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. Shall I not in that day, saith the Lord, even destroy the wise men out of Edom? We're coming back to Isaiah 29 again. Their wisdom is going to fail them. They're not going to be able to get themselves out of the mess that they've taught themselves into. And understanding out of the mount of Esau, and thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. We're talking about Edom. We're talking about fallen Adam. Mother says in one of the chapters in the song, she says, who will bring me into Edom? Who's going to bring me in there? She's talking about her daughters of Zion, who continued to carry this great blessing, whether they know it or not, through a long lineage, I believe, that they are stem from the original congregation of Mother, and the Spirit inhabited these daughters in a mighty way. For thy violence against thy sister Israel, not thy brother Jacob. It's thy sister Israel that they denied passing through the breach in the wall of David to the rightful birthright. This is what they did. For thy violence against thy sister Israel. Now I'm saying sister Israel. It says brother Jacob. Shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. For what fallen Adam did to his righteous sister, who was his wife, given in covenant. She was taken out from his body. Mother says, I give you in covenant the Spirit with the word. All right? He didn't want her word. He didn't want her. He wanted the harlot. He said, I'll make you a god in the earth. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, this is Adam standing against his sister. In the day that the strangers carried away captive her forces, daughter Zion's forces, and foreigners entered into her gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was as one of them. He turned against his own sister. Judah turned against his own sister, Israel. That's what that's saying there. Even though the sons of Judah were carried off. And it may be a reference to the daughters, the daughters of royalty as well, which were called the daughters of Zion. So, sorry, I'm stretching myself thin here on detail. Verse 12, but thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy sister, in the day that she became a stranger. There we go with the stranger. All right? So what did it say? They that hate me without a cause are more than the hairs of mine head, and they that would destroy me, being mine enemies wrongfully, are mighty. Then I restored that which I took not away. Verse 8, I am become a stranger unto my brethren, and an alien unto my mother's children. What does it say here? What does it say? It says in the day that she became a stranger. Verse 12, Obadiah 1, verse 12. But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy sister, in the day that she became a stranger. Israel was carried off. Right? That's what it says. And we see many other ways that they left the land and different things like that. We've discussed that in prior videos. But she became a stranger. Right? The day of their destruction, neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of their distress. Oh, he says, I've won over her. I've gotten her out of the land. Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. They robbed them of their own substance, of these daughters' substance, of what belonged to them rightfully. And we see it under the law. This is how they do that, with a covenant with the harlot spirit. And then we see it mentioned in Galatians 4. We see Hagar and her children are under bondage of the law that came from Mount Sinai, which subjugates women under men. And they steal your possessions that way. They steal your birthright that way. Right. Now, okay, we're going to leave it there for a minute, and we're going to go to Song of Solomon, because we're paying attention. We're following out that word stranger, right? Watch what it says. Now, in Job 30, she says, I have become black, right? In Song of Songs, chapter 1, verse 5, she says, I am black, but comely. O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Verse 6, look not upon me because I am black, because the sun had looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. You see what they're doing here? They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyards have I not kept. They put her under bondage of the law. They yoked her with their lying spirit, with their lies, and she failed to teach them the truth that would deliver them unto Mother God. They're her children. And what does Mother say to her in Hosea 2? Watch. Let's read it. I believe this in part has something to do with my dream that I haven't fully come to comprehend yet, but it's getting there. Let me see if I can find even the book of Hosea. I have trouble finding some of the books. These little tiny books in the back of the Old Testament. No, I knew it was before Job. Okay, so what does she say in Hosea 2? Here we have her neglecting her own vineyard. She has not raised her children in the word of God. She has raised her children based on what he has taught her, because they were angry, right? And that takes us back to Job 30, where she says, I have become black. He has dissolved my substance, right? This is what he did to her, to his righteous sister, to the righteous spirit. That's what the righteous woman represents, the righteous spirit, given to you in covenant to give you the word of heaven. And she teaches laws of what equity and fairness, wherein all substance is rightly divided to all right? And she says, look not upon me because I am black, because the sun had looked upon me. My mother's children are angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard, but my own vineyard have I not kept. What does she say in Hosea 2? This is Mother. This is not no male God speaking here. This is Mother. She says right here in verse 14. Therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak comfortably unto her. All right? So her time of being a sacrifice has come to an end here. Verse 15, and I will give her vineyards from thence. It says her, all right, just like it does here. She became a stranger to her brothers, to her sisters even, who hated her without a cause. Her brother hated her without a cause. They took her vineyards. They began to teach her children lies. This is the righteous spirit. My own vineyard have I not kept, she says. Right? And then mother says this in verse 15, and I will give her vineyards from thence. I'll give them back to her. And the valley of Gor for a door of hope. And she shall sing there as in the days of her youth, and as in the days when she came up out of the land of Egypt. Now, again, she says, I'll remove the name of Baal out of your mouth in verse 16 when you go and you look at it. But they got a father, and he says, I'll betroth you back to me. You know, a man don't betroth a woman to himself. The scriptures proves that mother chooses the bride for her son. This is what scripture has proven over and over again. Song of Solomon shows you that. She is the choice one of the mother. She chooses her as the bride. She crowns him in the day of his espousal. It's a mother that does that. She crowns her son with the daughter that she chooses out from amongst these daughters. And we also saw Hagar choose one for Ishmael, her son. She chose a bride for him. And you get that example throughout the scriptures. All right? You know, they've got it like, again, a man has to get his wife in line. That's what this does. But they have distorted the truth. All right? Because men were in control to do this by now. Your husbands, your men who wanted to be lords and masters over you, were in control to do that. So, and the key of David proves how they distorted the truth. They flipped the genders all around. And that's what they do. But here, she says, they were angry at me. I became a stranger unto them. But I was still forced to keep their vineyards. You know why? Because she's the only thing that can keep them alive. They don't want her, but she's the only thing keeping them alive. Right? And that's the key of David that Christ came to claim. The government will be upon his shoulder. Daughter Zion is the way that God will rule. Christ will rule this way. God of heaven rules this way through her daughters. This is what we're shown in scriptures over and over again. And so in Psalm 74, I'm going to leave Obadiah. I'm going to leave Song of Songs. And Obadiah here is a wonderful chapter. For the day of the Lord here, if you go back to the Lord up earlier, it's 136. It belongs to daughter Zion, the day of the Lord, her anger, for what they did to her, for the humiliation they put her through. The day of the Lord belongs to her. It's the indignant woman. You know that saying, hell have no fury, like a woman scorned. Well, it's really, there's some truth in that. More are the children of the desolate than of she who has a husband. And then it tells you how the wicked spirit, the harlot spirit steps leads down to the gates of Sheol. Okay? But the righteous daughter has vengeance stored up to pour upon any who rejects the righteous spirit out of her rightful place. All right? Because she has bore the sins. And she's ready. So, for as you have drunk upon my holy hill, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Let's keep going on here in Obadiah. But upon my Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Israel shall possess their possessions. All right. And the house of Israel shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, of Edom, of Adam, fallen Adam, who rejected her and the daughter Zion out of the rightful place. Let's keep going on. Verse 21, and saviors, deliverers, shall come up on Mount Zion. These are the daughters of Zion called your saviors. Yeshua is the word that should be here. It should be 3444. But they've got 3, 4, 6, 8, I think, because they don't want to show you the daughter Zion as your deliverers, as the ones that's going to birth truth in the earth that will deliver the children. We're told in Micah 4 that it is daughter Zion that will thresh the nations. It's her job. She's the judge that sits at the right hand of Christ. Psalm 110. I looked at all that. Now let's go. Let's finish the verse. And Savior shall come up on Mount Zion to judge. The judge. The mount of Esau, Adam, fallen Adam. And the kingdoms shall be the Lord. The kingdom shall be the Lord's. Hers. They belong to her. They always did. The first dominion, it says the dominion will be restored back to daughter Zion. That's what it tells you. And, okay. So here in Psalm 74, this is where I made a statement in my last video referencing, I think, men as being regarded as woodsmen that cut the trees down. And we were looking at the trees of Lebanon at that time. And so this is why I said that, because we get a clear chapter that this is precisely what these men came to be to these daughters of Zion. So I'm going to go over that too, quickly. And you find this reference in Psalm 74. Now, I truly believe that this is a reference to the men of Israel who had gotten themselves the upper hand, actually getting rid of any sanctuaries and knowledge of the daughter of Zion and Mother God, and where they would meet with Mother God. And I believe they were considered prophetesses of the land. And I believe their brothers stole their words out of their mouth and took possession of their words and made themselves prophets in the land falsely. And we actually have another chapter that I'd like to get into, but I don't think I'll do it on this video, where the last remaining female prophet is actually spoken of. They got it as a male prophet, but I don't believe it is. I believe it is the daughter Micaiah, who was the daughter Zion, Micaiah, and she is the last remaining woman prophet. And the prophet there slaps her when she speaks, and says, "You're going to die if you go up to battle." And the prophet slaps her face and he says, "So when did the Spirit leave me for you?" Right? So it's all a reference, really, about how the men begin to take charge and say, well, Father speaks to us. And they were removing these righteous daughters out of the land, any knowledge of them, any understanding of them, any comprehension of how they worked as a mighty congregation for Mother God, given in covenant with mankind to give them the words of heaven that would give you eternal life. All right. Now this chapter is all about this, so we're going to read through it. It's a masculine of Asaph. Asaph means your gatherer. That's a reference to your spirit, who's going to gather the children, birth them out. Why have you rejected us forever, God? Why does your anger burn against the sheep of your pasture? Remember thy congregation, right? Which thou hast purchased of old, the rod. Daughter Zion is the rod that comes out of Zion. The rod of thine inheritance, which thou hast redeemed, this Mount Zion wherein thou hast dwelt. You get daughter Zion coming out of Zion as the rod in Psalm 110. It says he, the Lord that sits to Christ's right hand, they'll call her a he, it's a she. It's daughter Zion. Her number is 136. She's called the sovereign Lord. The dominion will be returned back to her. She is the righteous spirit that was always, this birthright belonged to her. The vineyards were her. The hosts were her. Oh yeah, I want to go into that too. I forgot about that. I'll get to that in a minute. Lift up thy feet unto the perpetual desolation, even all that the enemy had done wickedly in thy sanctuary. Now watch this. Thine enemies roar in the midst of thy congregations, and they set up their standards, their signs. All right? So here you have a changeover happening. A man was famous, or according as he had lifted up axes upon the thick trees. Watch. We talked about Lebanon being these daughters of Zion, that these men, wicked men, welded their axe and cut down. You get that analogy. It says this in another translation. It says, it was like men in a thicket of trees welding axes. All right, and you get that illusion in Micah 2 again, where they were like men of war coming at these daughters of Zion who wore mantles, and they were ripping them off of them. They were taking their rightful place from them and putting the harlot, which put him in charge. That's what was going on. It was like men in a thicket of trees wielding axes. But now they break down the carved work thereof at once with axes and hammers. They have cast fire into thy sanctuary. They have defiled by casting down the dwelling place of thy name to the ground. They have set your sanctuary on fire. They utterly desecrated the dwelling place of your name. Whose name? Mother Zion's name, I believe. Daughter Zion's name, Mother Jerusalem. This was her congregation that she met with. They said in their hearts, let us oppress them relentlessly. And they did. They burned down every place throughout the land where God met with us, where the daughters of Zion met in the land. The land of Israel, the land of Judah. They burned these places down so there would be no remembrance of them. No remembrance of this great congregation of Mother God. All right, representing the spirit that was given in covenant with the word to give you eternal life. And they burned down these synagogues throughout the land where God met with us. God hears Daughter Zion. There are no signs for us to see, right? We see not our signs. There is no more any prophet. It says prophetess. There's no longer a prophetess among us. And none of us knows how long this will last. Can you imagine these daughters of God witnessing what these wicked sons were doing to their rightful birthright because of the harlot spirit that Adam had let in? No longer wanted her. She says they turn on me without a cause. They have no reason to hate me. I've done nothing bad to them. And here they were, like, what does it say? It was like men in a thicket of trees wielding axes. They behaved like men wielding axes to cut through a thicket of trees, it says in another translation. They couldn't cut them down fast enough. And that's your archers, your men of Baal, your husbands, your Lord and your master, shooting at the daughters of Zion, your branches, as they pass over the wall in Joseph's blessing. Joseph represents Israel. And it's a daughter that holds the birthright. It was never a son intended to hold it. And she says, my own vineyards I have neglected. I've been forced to keep his with his lies, to keep him exalted, and me suppressed and under bondage. We see not our signs. There is no prophetess. All right? They began to steal her words. All right? What that means is they said, Father speaks to us. Right? And so they were playing this switcheroo game, is what was going on. Oh God, how long shall the adversary reproach? Shall the enemy blaspheme thy name forever? So here we have enmity going on. All right? Lucifer against Eve. All right? So we have the wicked seed and we have the righteous seed. Why withdrawest thou thy hand, even thy right hand, pluck it out of thy bosom? Guess what? The Freemasons do that. You'll see a lot of these Mason boys holding their hand. You know what they're trying to do? They're trying to stave off the power of the right hand called Daughter Zion. It's a ritual that they're pulling, that they're trying to do there. But this is what the daughter says to Mother. She says, take us out from hiding. And she says, take it from the folds of your garment and destroy them. Right? For God is my, not king, it says king. For God is my queen of old. You lie. Working salvation in the midst of the earth. What does it say? In another translation, yet God is my queen, not king, from of old, who works deeds of deliverance in the midst of the earth. Who are we told the issues of death are belonging to? In Psalm 68, Daughter Zion, they belong to her. Thou didst divide the sea by thy strength. Thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. So you can take that to daughter Babylon. To Lucifer. Leviathan represents Lucifer, the spirit that took charge in the water. Your water represents your spirit allegory there. We're told that it was the daughter Zion that did that when we study Isaiah 51. Isaiah 51, Isaiah 52, and if you go back to Psalm 89, you link those three passages together, you cannot help but understand it is daughter Zion, who is called the strong right arm of God, who is called God in the earth. And she did this. She's the one that did this. The day is thine, the night is also thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. Thou hast set all the borders of the earth. Thou hast made summer and winter. Remember this, that the enemy has reproached, O Lord, and that the foolish people has blasphemed thy name. Remember. There's that word, remember. O deliver not the soul of thy turtle dove, of thy dove, unto the multitude of the wicked. Forget not the congregation of thy poor. That's why I said poor, I think, is a reference to these daughters of Zion. Have respect unto the covenant. Remember your covenant. For the places of the earth are full of habitations of cruelty. It has become a violent place to live, for righteous women in particularly. Oh, let not the oppressed return ashamed. Let the poor and needy praise thy name. And they do not return ashamed, because Israel has obtained that which she seeketh for. You find that verse in Romans 11. They've got a he for Israel. No, she has obtained it. And you keep running that word out, obtained. I said it previously, I believe. You're going to run it out to mean birth. She has birthed her children in the earth. She has returned back to her vineyard. It has been given back to her. She has started to teach it the truth of heaven. All right? Arise, O God, plead thine own cause. These daughters of Zion are to rise up and plead their own cause. They are called the right hand of God. They are called God in the earth. Plead thine own cause. Remember, remember, remember how the foolish man reproaches thee daily. Forget not the voice of thine enemies. The tumult of those that rise up against thee increases continually. All right. Where else did I want to go? I said there was another passage I wanted to pull up. Now I can't remember what it was. But you see how you connect all of these passages together? Do you see what it's really telling us? When you take out, fallen theology and what they've taught you, it means. And it's all men that have taught you this. It's all men that the commentaries are written by. And it's all designed to favor them strongly and to completely suppress you, to subjugate you, to yoke you. This is what the fathers before them have known. They were taught by the fathers of old there, and nothing has changed. They have continued to view themselves as the image of God in the earth. What does it say? No, you're not. He that is joined to a harlot is a harlot. Well, that don't sound like you're the image of God if you're joined to a harlot. So what is God saying there? God is saying, join yourself to the righteous spirit, to the righteous daughter. She is the image of God. And actually, there is a core group of daughters. They are a divine selection. We keep talking about that. They're spoken of in Romans 11. And they are called your principals. Your principal. She that stands up for Israel in the end of days is the daughter Zion. She does this. She's known as Micaiah. She who is like God, her mother. And she will eventually, over time, become, I think, is what it seems to be leading us to, the daughter of Zion in the earth. And she's going to manifest in physical time and space. And she's going to show real power. Because she does appear to have real power. Now, I've been studying another reference that seems to indicate that she was the last prophetess in existence, and it's where it says that the man slaps her. It's Zedekiah that slaps her across the face. Now, they got her a him. I don't think it is. I really don't believe it's a him. I believe it's the last remaining female prophetess from the daughters of Zion that they have in prison at that time. And when she prophesies against the king and tells him something he doesn't want to hear, versus the other 400 male prophets who tells him everything he wants to hear, Zedekiah slaps her across the face and says, "Since when did the Spirit leave me for you?" Right? So it's really strongly male against female here is your imagery, what you come to understand. They've got a male when it should really be a female. The vineyards belongs to the daughters. It always has been their birthright. A birthright don't belong to no man. Common sense ought to tell you that. Reasoning with the Spirit ought to tell you some things. So, did we get through everything we wanted to get through here? I think we did. I think we finished up on our understanding of the ashes, how Israel has become a sacrifice, a heap of ashes. She is an Ariel. Okay, we looked at Obadiah. We looked at Song of Songs. So I think we'll leave it there. No, there was one other thing I wanted to share with you. And that is in Psalm 74. I speculated that it was the daily sacrifice that was removed. In Psalm 74, and what I mean by that is in Daniel 8, verse, let's read 10. And I speculated that this is a picture of the vineyard or host being taken away from the daughter of Zion, which you sort of see in Psalm 74 taking place as the men chop these trees down. They crush, they get rid of all the sanctuaries where they met with Mother God. And they would take the word of what Mother had to say to all the rest of the nation of Israel and Judah. That was what they did. They were given in covenant. But I speculate that Psalm 74 is a picture of what you find in Daniel 8, and it was a picture of the vineyard or of the host being taken away from the principal, which is daughter Zion. Daniel 8:10, it says, the harlot, now I put harlot, but they don't have harlot in Daniel 8, they have it. Okay, the harlot grew, and I think it's Babylon, Lucifer, until she, it's got it, again, if you read Daniel 8:10, but I'm putting she, all right, grew until she reached the hosts of heaven, all right, Adam caused this, and she, not it, threw down some of the starry hosts down to the earth and trampled them. Verse 11, she, not it, set herself up to be as great as the commander. That is daughter Zion, the commander of the army. Host, the commander of the host, the keeper of the vineyard, the harlot spirit. Now, verse 11. All right, she set herself up to be as great as the commander, as the principal, all right, as the chief. The harlot spirit set herself up to be as great as the original principal from God, of the Lord, and she, not it, took away the daily sacrifice. Now I think that is found in Psalm 74 when they destroyed the sanctuary. Her vineyard is taken from her. She is shown breaking her staff, her covenant with the men who no longer wanted her as the righteous spirit, and then she is shown breaking her staff with her inheritance, which is the daughters of Zion, who were the poor of the flock, which are the congregation of the Lord. They knew what was going on. They were being overwhelmed under the law that was being written, that these men were accepting and bringing in the harlot spirit that was allowing him to do this. And the daily sacrifice from the Lord, it says, and not her, from the Lord, and her, not his, her sanctuary was thrown down. So that's why I linked it back to Psalm 74, because in there they were destroying every sanctuary in the land. And here in Daniel it says the host was taken away from the commander at that time, from your principal at that time, from the prince, it says, but it's your principal that was governing the body, the righteous spirit. It was taken from her vineyard was taken from her, and it was handed over to the harlot spirit, to those men to govern themselves. And it says, from the Lord, and her sanctuary was thrown down. Verse 12, because of rebellion, the Lord's people, who would not have the righteous spirit governing them, they wanted the harlot. Because of rebellion, the Lord's people and the daily sacrifice were given over to her, to the harlot, to Babylon, which is then to himself. She, Babylon, it says, prospered in everything she and he did, fallen Adam did, and truth was cast down to the ground. So there's another correlation there with Psalm 74 and all the sanctuaries being took out of the land. All remembrance of Mother God with her congregation, these daughters of Zion. They were cast out. The vineyard no longer wanted them. They were in full rebellion at this time. The men were like men welding axes in forest. They were cutting these trees down. They were getting them out of the land. And so the host, it says, was taken away from her. Her vineyard was taken away from her, and it was given to the harlot. And then you see the allegory in Song of Songs once again. And we'll just finish up with that one. What does it say in Song of Song, chapter 1? Verse 5, I am black but comely, O you daughters of Jerusalem, which we know are called daughters of Zion later on, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Verse 6, look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children, now my mother's sons, were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyards have I not kept. And there you see the host being gave over to this one that has exalted herself equal to the principle of heaven, which was the daughter Zion. So you're looking at that in allegory. If you want to go look into it, I don't know what this sounds like, if it came together well. I apologize that I'm all over the board, but I really have to try to pull some of the thoughts together for you, for myself as well. They have it. That's my finish up on the last video with some new information mixed in there. I thank all who watch my videos. I appreciate it, taking the time, try to understand what I'm saying. May the Lord bless you in all that you're pursuing. And I hope y'all have a really nice day.